Spread lines on a Friday, the information you need to know for tonight, this weekend's action, and rolling into it and seeing exactly why maybe some of these lines are moving. Let's get started in college basketball tonight, Joe. Why? So we don't have any NBA action here. College it is. Michigan State and Wisconsin. By the way, Joe, wasn't too long ago where maybe the NCAA on a Friday night gave us a couple games out of the Ivy League, and that was it. But now we're actually getting some bangers on Friday nights to start your weekends out, and we love to see it. Michigan State opened up as a favorite, Joe, -1.5 over Wisconsin, despite being the road team here in the Big Ten. Today, where does it sit this morning? Still at -1.5 and a total of 145.5. The one thing we know about Michigan State, they love defense. The most efficient defense in Big Ten play takes their defense on the road to take on Wisconsin and the Badgers. Joe, what's your spread line tonight for a Friday?
Donnie, Wisconsin just upsetting everybody, going on the road against Illinois, getting it done in overtime. They did it to Michigan. Well, I don't know. Now, is this the spot where they come home feeling all fat and sassy? Is this the time where Michigan State comes in and smacks them? Well, I guess it all depends on how many people Jeremy Fears actually trips or hits in the groin here for Michigan State. You got to love this kid, Donnie, because everybody loves a villain, right? And he is the villain in college basketball this year. Now that Charles Bediako, of course, will not be seeing the court anymore. We saw 1-1. It has not moved here. It's not a great spot for Wisconsin. Again, a big road upset, overtime. Now they got to come home. It's a good opportunity for Michigan State to get another one in the books here.
Some more college basketball tonight, Joe. May the better George win. George Mason on the road to take on George Washington. Line overnight opened up at around 2.5. Still sits there this morning at -2.5 and a total of 148.5. George Washington comes in this game as the third most efficient offense in conference play. George Mason's defense, number 2 in conference play at efficiency here. They don't foul that much. They defend the three-point line and pretty stingy inside the arc, Joe. George Mason, George Washington. What's the spread line?
Yeah, the battle of the Georgias, right? Second go at this. The first one was a heck of a battle here. But GW is an interesting team. They're like, bipolar. They were great early on. Then they got into the Atlantic 10 Conference. They're 3-7 over their last 10 games, which sounds terrible, Donnie. But can I tell you something? The metrics tell us they are playing like a top 80, 90 team in the country right now. They've just had some awful luck in a number of games, which means they get this one tonight. They are going to be extremely dangerous come tournament time there in the A10. So this is going to be an interesting battle. I know a lot of people early on looking at George Mason. I would not sleep on George Washington in this spot. I think they can get it done.
Billikens in the A10. If you're not paying attention, one loss this season, Joe, by 1 point to the Stanford Cardinal here. They come into this game versus Loyola Chicago as 18.5-point favorites here and a total of 155.5. If you look at the metrics, the number 1 team by far in efficiency in conference play, it's St. Louis. That's offense. How about defense? The number 1 defense in efficiency in conference play, it's St. Louis. And how about this? Loyola Chicago's offense, Joe, dead last in efficiency in conference play. So you're telling me the best defense is playing the worst offense. That's why you get an 18.5-point line here on a Friday morning. Joe, what's that spread line? St. Louis, Loyola Chicago.
You know, it is, if you have not watched St. Louis and the Billikens play, man, it is quietly becoming a fun story. We've told you about Miami of Ohio, right? And their undefeated run, and we'll get to them in a minute. But the Billikens, unbelievable what they have done running the table and how they play basketball. It is absolutely fantastic. And now they're taking on a Loyola Chicago team who, let's hope they just don't have one of those games where they actually look somewhat functional, because they have not been functional at all this year. This is an 18.5-point line for a reason, but there are a lot of people, Donnie, that believe the Billikens are going to be that Cinderella team come March. They are a legit top 20 team, and they're going to show it again here tonight against Loyola on the major net. They're going to get big network treatment tonight here, Donnie, the Billikens. Yep.
How about Ohio versus Miami of Ohio tonight in the MAC? 7 games left in the MAC schedule here for Miami of Ohio. Why is that important? They are undefeated, the only team left in collegiate basketball right now. They're double-digit favorites, Joe. They opened up last night -9.5. Now they sit -10.5 as we check across the board today. 163.5 points is the total. Love to see that. Why? Miami's offense, number 1 in efficiency, number 1 in effective field goal percentage, and they are number 1 inside the arc, Joe. 66% as a team when not shooting the three-point shot. This team gets down to business, Joe. Number 1, do they win tonight and advance as still being the undefeated team? And number 2, what's that spread line on covering the -10.5?
Listen, Donnie, you and I both, we've been talking about this team for how long now? And as far as I'm concerned, they will be on every spread line right till the end of the regular season. We told you over a month ago, this was a team that had a legit shot at going undefeated. It came down to, it was Nebraska, Arizona, Miami of Ohio. Well, Nebraska and Arizona have now lost. Miami of Ohio is the last team standing. 10.5-point favorite at home. Listen, they did not have a problem against Ohio earlier this year. I doubt very much they're going to have a problem here. But, Donnie, at the same time, as much as they say there's no pressure, they know they're the last undefeated team standing here with nothing really standing in the way but them. I think they get it done. But believe it or not, I wouldn't be running to the window to lay the 10.5, 11 points with them. A lot of pressure even at home here tonight.
Kentucky versus Florida. This game's going to take place on a Saturday. If you didn't know by now in the SEC, the most efficient offense, that is the Florida Gators. The most efficient defense in conference play, that is also the Florida Gators. Now, I do see it. Do we have a graphic coming up for this one? Because I'm showing DraftKings at -11.5, but in the notes it says 4.5. Do we have an official spread out yet for this? There we go. 11.5. It is. Yep, 11.5. Heavy favorite for the Gators, Joe, at home. What's that spread line there?
And they should be. I mean, listen, Kentucky, kudos to Mark Pope for turning it around here. It was not looking good, especially early on in SEC play. But you are walking into a absolute dungeon here in Gainesville with the way the University of Florida is playing. The confidence, the guard play is back to where it is. Yeah, good luck, Kentucky. Good to get your season back on track. But I think those good feelings end tomorrow against Florida.
Sometimes I don't want to sound like a hater, even though sometimes I enjoy being a hater at this point. But sometimes we have to just have common sense actually work through things where it's like, okay, well, your eligibility is up. Oh, I got to move on to the pros, or, I graduate college with my degree and I go get a job or wherever I work, and that's fine. Now it turned into, well, the NCAA we don't think is that toothless here. I have no eligibility left. Let's just sue and say I should be able to play another year of college football, even though my eligibility is out. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Not in today's landscape. And also understand how we got to this concept here, where it was always where once you got to college post high school, you had 5 years to complete 4 because they did built in a red shirt for you. If you went 2 years to JUCO, that's 2 years here. Well, then you got 2 years to play, let's just say Division II or Division I football. Or if you took a red shirt here, we understood the game and the numbers that were involved at this point. But then it turns into, you know what? Let's try to game the system. I'm out of eligibility, but I'm going to make up a story from my freshman and sophomore year at Division II where I had trouble breathing, and that's why I got an extra medical red shirt, even though there's no documentation on it. Let's just see if it flies in court. And when that doesn't work, you just change up and go to another outlet, another court system, and try a different path. And here we are today. Chambliss will be coming back to Ole Miss because a Mississippi judge said he should be able to play and grants an injunction here, only for the NCAA to be like, that's cool, we'll appeal it again. Joe, nothing makes any sense. And just imagine when we were laughing just a few days ago with Bediako, why don't you just keep changing courts until he plays his next year? And then by the time you don't have an answer, he's already done his 7th, 8th, or 9th year in college.
And it's such an easy fix, Donnie, too, right? I mean, you just put together a collective agreement that, listen, you get 5 years. Do whatever you want to do in those 5 years of eligibility. And, knock on wood, if something drastic happens, you get 5 years. That's it. Anything beyond 5 years is absolutely absurd. And that's exactly what we've got here, Donnie. We've got a situation where a kid is going to be 24 years old. The only reason this is even a thing now is because of the multi-millions of dollars in the NIL collective that he's going to get here to come back. Otherwise, he would have done what generations prior to him did, Donnie. You know what it is? Go to the NFL draft and begin your career, and it's that simple. But too much money at stake now, and I don't blame the kids for going to do it. I really don't.
And by the way, Joe, if you are a lawyer and you're watching this program right now, you look for those big class action lawsuits like, you know what, I'm first on this asbestos thing or this, bad water in this town here. I'm going to jump on this and we're going to sue. If you're a lawyer right now, here's what you need to do over the next couple of years. Wait for a player who's a freshman in college to get injured by a player that's 24 or 25 years old that was supposed to be out of eligibility, that was allowed to play. That's your next billion-dollar lawsuit against the NCAA and the football rights at this point. We've gotten way out of hand at this point, but I always iterate this and say this once again, Joe. The people out there that thought players should be getting paid, you should absolutely love this stuff. You should love 35-year-old kids eventually play. Kids, I should, because they're still in college, playing against 17-year-olds. Yeah, an 18-year difference there at that point. Don't worry, it's coming. You want them to get paid, and they absolutely did. And how about this? This is our favorite part about it. He could say, like, if he would have took this approach, you know what? Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to play football in college. I wanted to be a professional quarterback. But you know what I really wanted to do? I wanted to be a doctor. And there's no way I can play football and try to be a doctor. But now I'm in pre-med at this point. So if I can stay playing football and still stay at school, I can get my doctorate at the same time. That would have flipped it on its head. But at this time, Joe, we had a tweet come out from NIL, not NLI. Trinidad Chambliss is currently detailing all the benefits he will receive with another year of eligibility at Ole Miss, never mentioning academics.
Yeah, because, it was like Carson Beck last year. I think one of the interviewers asked him, so what's it like managing your class schedule and getting ready for the national championship? And he's like, class? I graduated 2 years ago. I don't have class. There is no schedule. And that is what you have now in college football. And now that you have one favorable ruling, it's going to open up the floodgates across the board. So anybody who feels that they have an extra year coming to them, and by the way, the only people who feel this are 23, 24, and 25 years old, Donnie.
And by the way, let's start gaming the system, because we usually take a look at, Joe, the upper echelon of talent. Like, I'm going to get paid $6 million if I come back. If you are the third string right guard, go ahead and get your 6th year here, because you can still use that university, as I just said, be pre-med, get a double major, get your master's, get multiple master's degrees on the NCAA before you graduate. Yep. You might never go pro, and a lot of these people don't, but that doesn't like, hey, I'm time to graduate, played 5. No. Every single player on every single roster, whether you're a great player or not, sue for extra years. Stay in school, get it paid for, get your majors, and move on, Joe. It's a great business practice now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're going to get. But, much like we've talked about with college basketball, when you get guys like Charles Bediako going and others here, basically you're creating, instead of the actual G League, that's what college athletics is now. It's the minor leagues. And that's what you're creating. And there's no reason. I mean, listen, Indiana just won a national championship with I believe the highest the starting age of all their starters on both sides of the ball are 23, 24 years old, the majority. We're talking about 5th-year guys across the board. It's, that's the new, and kudos to them for figuring it out early, but it's not going to get any better. Not now, not until somebody steps in and says, wait a minute, we got to put some guidelines here. And right now, it's still the wild, wild west.
And also, like, flipping it around, Joe, and keeping it in college football. How do we not have kids that just aren't allowed to go from high school to the pros at this point? How does that injunction even stand up if we're getting 6 and 7 year and 8 years for college kids at this point? You tell me right now, freshmen like Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State shouldn't just be able to sue and be like, I played 1 year. I'm the best player in college football. You're telling me I have to play for 2 more years before I go pro? How does that even stand up? I don't know, but I'm sure some judge is waiting around the corner to upend that as well. It's a mess in collegiate sports. It's the way it is growing up. And it's not, again, old man yelling at clouds. A lot of the fun of college sports, Joe, was watching college basketball and college football and having the team grow while you watch. Like, man, this kid's a freshman. I'm going to watch him for 4 more years. Like those mid-major teams in the 80s and 90s going into the college tournament. Hey, these 2 kids, these 5 starters are all 22 years old. They played with each other for 5 years, including a red shirt, and now they're ready to do some damage. The minute that kid is really good at a mid-major, he's going to be a 7th man, let's just say, at Baylor or at a big school at this point. Just the way it is at this point, and it's happening. But at least we do get to talk about some college basketball on a Friday. Michigan State and Wisconsin, Joe. We got some movement. We were telling you 1.5s at the start of the show between Michigan State and Wisconsin. I'm now seeing 2.5s coming to town here for Michigan State as the road favorite against Wisconsin now.
Yeah, and again, I think the spot dictates it, right? Knowing that Wisconsin just came off another monster upset win, come from behind against Illinois on the road, and they did that earlier against Michigan, right? I mean, they did the unthinkable, the only team that's been able to get them into the L column. It's not going to be an easy game. These are 2 teams that are going to be very, very physical, but keep an eye here with Wisconsin. I'm wondering, Donnie, early in the morning as we see this line being pumped up, is it eventually going to be sold as we get closer to the game? Are we trying to get Wisconsin at a better number right now? Because that's a big jump from overnight here, Donnie. A lot of Michigan State money, and we all know it's going to be hit or miss based upon what Fears does with this team. That just appears to be what Izzo has. If that kid goes, Michigan State goes. If he doesn't, yeah, that's a tough scene there for Michigan State.
We always like to have a lot of fun, too, with like Michigan at home tomorrow against UCLA. -16.5 is the opening number for Michigan here. What are the odds? Forget about -16.5. Odds that Mick Cronin has an issue with UCLA, has to travel to Michigan, and it's not fair because Michigan's too good and he gets upset.
Already, we're already hearing it, Donnie. Stop it. We already know that's happening here, and he's already going to scream and yell here. But listen, there's levels to this, right? And it's not like it can't be done. It's not like teams from the West that travel east or east to west have not won some games. I mean, it's absolutely possible. But Mick Cronin's been screaming about this since they entered the Big Ten, and it's not getting any better for him.
No basketball tonight, Joe, in the NBA, which is, I think I know where you're going. Tell the people.
It means we're going college hoops. In the game of the night, Donnie, Michigan State taking on Wisconsin in Wisconsin. And the crazy part about this is the last time that we saw Wisconsin, they won a game on the road against Illinois in overtime on Tuesday. Ironically enough, the last time we saw Michigan State play, it was Saturday. They were winning a game in overtime against Illinois as well. So they both come in off overtime wins against Illinois, only Michigan State is the more rested team here. Not to mention, they're the better team. I mean, Wisconsin with the upset win there on the road. Now they got to come home and take on the better defensive team with the best player on the court. With Fears tonight. Short favorite here for Michigan State with a couple extra days of rest. It matters. It's going to matter here tonight. Jeremy Fears Jr., again, best player on the court. He's going to elevate this team to a win tonight, and I think it's going to be rather easy.
Team total tonight for me, and I'm going to head to college basketball. St. Louis taking on Loyola Chicago. Joe, we previewed this game early in the show. St. Louis's defense, the best in conference play, which includes the best three-point shooting percentage against and also two-point shooting percentage against. You take a look at Loyola's offense, we pointed out to you the worst in conference play, and also they turn the basketball over 22% of the time, which basically means 1 out of every 4 times up the court, Joe, they don't even get a shot off. They're going to get their doors blown off tonight, but we're not betting the spread. We're betting a team total, and we're not going over, Joe. We're going under 68.5 points for Loyola Chicago tonight. Defense, defense, defense for the Billikens tonight for me, Joe. That's how we get down. You have 2 games tonight. It's a Friday. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow. You know what? We'll do it bright and early once we get back in again on Monday. For Joe and Donnie, we'll see you then.